All right, well, we're going to do the stroganoff first. This is a simple stroganoff recipe. And I better take this other one out. Let's see. So we can put it in our crock pot. This is a crock pot recipe. All right. Well, it calls for round steak cubes. Now you can cube this or you can put it in strips, however, beef tips, whatever you want. You know, it's not picky. It's a relatively simple recipe, extremely simple stroganoff recipe. But instead of bringing round steak, we have top round, round tip, you name it. Top round is the best if you're going to use a round steak. Sometimes people use what's called a full cut, which is an eye round steak, a bottom round steak, and a top round steak all together. So it's a great big piece of meat. People used to roll it up a lot and make a lot of different things or bake it in the oven. It was a lot more popular probably 20 years ago than it is now. But this week, we have certified Angus and USDA Select steak on sale, top sirloin steak. And I'm using this week instead of the round steak because it's actually a better buy. It's a better cut of meat. It's a grill steak, but it's a little bit more tender. Now the Angus is, certified Angus is guaranteed to be a better steak, a more tender steak than the Select steak. Either one of these are equally as good. This recipe cooks for a very long time. You can tell just a little bit. There's a little bit more marbling in the Angus. Ribeyes, you can tell a huge difference. That marbling is just a little bit of fat, how that fat is spread out in the meat, and that's what makes this steak more tender. This is a Select steak. This is a step down. We're not at the bottom of the chain like some grocery stores and the meat that they sell. We still stand behind our meat, but we only sell Select meat, USDA Select meat in grill steaks. That's ribeyes, top sirloin, New York strips, and beef tenderloin. But I'm going to cut both of these up tonight in strips because they are such a good buy this week. They're on your value card. What I prepared the recipe with is the cap. And the cap is actually really interesting, and most of us that work in the meat department actually buy the cap. This is a top sirloin, and there's usually a piece of fat that runs on top of this, another little piece of meat, and more fat. Well, that piece of meat that is hidden right there is usually cut into little pieces that's more like a little bit bigger than this, and it's all in a row, and it still says top sirloin. People will look at it at times and they'll think, that's just, you know, it doesn't look as appealing as this big steak, but actually it's more tender. You get very little of that meat off a whole top sirloin that's this big, but that's the one you need to look for when you go down to the meat shop. And of course, we will help you at any time if you're needing help. And I'm going to cut this a little bit backwards of how we usually cut this, just because we are putting this in stroganoff. Now, you need a good sharp knife at home, but we'll be glad to cut this up for you. Let me get some of this out. This does take 6 to 8 hours to cook on low, but you can, if you're in a pinch, you can put this in on high for an hour or two, then cut it down. Cut that little piece of fat out. There's not a lot of fat in top sirloin, so you get more bang for your buck. This is a great steak to take outside and put on the grill, but tonight I figured I had something else in mind, but then last night I thought, oh, it's going to be cold outside, and this is a great little casserole or meal to kind of warm you up, because I like warm food when it's cold outside. I guess we've all agreed on that we like warm food. And this calls for a pound. This is going to be about 2 pounds. You can give or take. This mixture that we mix with this actually is a lot of a soupy mixture. It's great. We serve this over rice or noodles, but I like to add just a little bit more meat. And this is give or take what's on sale or what you've got at home. You know, you can even cut the amount of soup in half if you want. Of course, I don't know what you'll do with half a can of cream of mushroom, but you know. You can eat on this for days and days. You could even certainly freeze this after you cook this. And if you notice, a lot of times people will think that the meat is bad, and that's just, if you see the darkness on the meat, that's actually because that meat has not hit air. It's not had enough oxygen applied to it. Within 30 minutes, it will be the same color all the way through. But now sometimes after we cut meat, it will get that what we call a halo on the outside because it's had more air exposure. And that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it. It's just the air and the exposure that it gets sitting to wait. That's why we keep a meat department so cold, because we say life begins at 40. More ways than one, I guess. But bacteria grows at 40 degrees. So we like to keep it good and cold. So our meat department sits about 42 degrees. And my timer is going off. Nothing important just yet. But so it stays good and cold. So while that meat is waiting to be wrapped, which is wrapped very quickly and put out on the shelf, it stays cold. Our coolers run very, very cold, colder than your refrigerator at home. Our coolers run about 28 to 32 degrees. So that's your little bit of meat wealth knowledge tonight. All right. And if you find a cut of meat that you want ground up, we certainly will do that. We've had more and more questions about having roast ground up in the last few weeks than we ever have before. We're certainly happy to do that. If you find a cut of meat you want cut in beef stew, or cut of meat you want cut into strips or tips, we will certainly do that. It's free of charge anytime. All you have to do is ask. We're going to take one envelope of beefy onion soup mix. In fact, there's so many stroganoff recipes, there's even one on the back of the box. I'm just going to sprinkle that over. But I have doubled the meat for this recipe because I have lived and learned. And then we're going to take 1 can of cream of mushroom and 1 can of cream of celery. This is so super easy. You can have it in the oven in minutes, especially if you buy the meat already cut up. You can fly on this. You can have it in the crock pot, or you can put this in the oven. But you can put this in a crock pot and you can be walking out the door, going to work or going to church or somewhere, and it is done. Now, if you don't have cream of celery, of course you can always use cream of chicken. I just kind of use what I've got. Golden mushroom soup is wonderful also. Now, it says optional, you can use a 1/2 cup of sour cream. I don't think you can have stroganoff without having sour cream. So, you can eyeball that and just put a little bit in. You know how I like to measure things and all. All right. There we go. And it's all over me. Just stir this all up. Easier said than done in this little crock pot top. All right. And just kind of blend that around, and it kind of takes care of itself as it cooks. So this is extreme because it's extremely easy. All right. Now we're going to put a lid on that. This crock pot's a little bit strange. There we go. Put the lid on that, and this is our beef stroganoff. I'll stir it up a little better when it comes out. And we're going to put that on a bed of noodles. You can use rice. You can use any kind of noodles you want. I use egg noodles or no yolks. I know how many of y'all use no yolks. We're going to mix that together, and we're going to have that this evening also.